Huh. Are we live? Are we live? Okay, friends, if you can hear me, please confirm in the chat. Let's move over. Maybe I can do like this. I see Oscar in the chat. I remember we spoke on the previous. Hello, Alex. Hello. Special shout out to Oscar because I remember us speaking on the previous live. Hello, Barney. And Oscar, if I'm not mistaken, you should be a father by now, right? Please correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it's another person that I've talked to that time. Although I think it was you. And friends, please confirm if you can hear me well, if audio quality is good. Okay, thank you, Alex. Friends, you can send any questions you might have my way. I'm willing to talk about anything and everything. I haven't done a live in a while. I'm looking forward to doing them more often, although definitely on long form platforms, not on Instagram. I've been having issues with Instagram for a while now, and actually, I will not be able to do lives there for another 9 months, something like that. So I got hit with some restrictions, but I want to not fully transition to long form platforms, but definitely invest more time and effort and energy into long form platforms. So yeah, when it comes to lives, definitely YouTube. I've been recommended, and please, for people here, do you ever watch live streams on Twitch? Because as it's been brought to my attention that Twitch isn't purely gaming streams, that there are educational streams, sort of, let's say, valuable content and material. No hate for gaming streamers, but still there is some distinction between educational and entertainment streams. So let me know, anyone here, and I see Oscar. Let me know if you ever watch any kind of educational streams anywhere else other than YouTube. Luca, brother. So okay, happy to see you here. I'm guessing it's pretty late for you, so I really appreciate you joining. Everyone, please, can you tell me in the chat where you're from or where you're joining from? Barney is asking a really interesting question. Do you have any thoughts on not thinking about the past? I find that my worst enemy is often reminiscing too much about the good old days. I have an answer for you. I mean, I don't have. let me put it like this. This is important. I don't have the answer. Nothing that I say is, I don't perceive myself as the person who has the definite answers for the questions of life, but I do have something that's hopefully of value on the topic of past, because that's something that I do think about quite often and write notes to myself and have written about it. But before I dive into answering your question, excuse me, let me just point out a couple of things. Thank you all for sharing where you're from, or where you're watching this from. Oscar, maybe you didn't here at the beginning of the stream, I addressed you. So I would just like to, uh, while I'm answering the question to Barney, I would like Oscar to know if I'm mistaken or not when I say that we spoke on the probably the last live that I've done in the 2024, which was during summertime, and you and your wife were expecting a baby. So Oscar, if that's true, I would like to hear if everything went well and if you are a father now. And hello, Morgan in Oklahoma. Okay, now I would like to go on sort of a rant addressing Barney's question about the past. Uh, I will also point out something interesting. Um, often when people talk about reflecting on the past too much, it's because of all the mistakes they have made or things that have been done to them. So I would say that, at least from my interactions or from the comments that I receive and messages that I receive, you're in a minority when you say reminiscing too much on the good old days. But I want to share a couple of things how I perceive the past. I think. Okay, Barney, please don't don't be mad. I just have to see what Oscar said because this is something for all of us to congratulate him on, right? I believe. And greetings for beautiful Argentina. Oscar, okay, yeah, we gave birth to a beautiful boy named Atticus. It has been difficult because he was born premature, but he's well now. Thank you for remembering us. Miss your videos on here. Wow, beautiful. Oscar, first of all, congratulations. All the best to you and your family and your beautiful boy. I wish him all the health, strength, joy, love, and peace. I wish you collectively as a family to create as many beautiful moments as possible, as many beautiful memories. And I want to reflect on the fact that last time when we spoke, you didn't necessarily seek out advice from me because I'm not a father, but you expressed your desire to prepare yourself to be a father more than just the, let's say, traditional way. A lot of men, if they biologically create a kid, sense that they are by default ready to be a father. So you express this desire to prepare yourself in some way more, to equip yourself with some maybe mental tools for being a good father. So I just want to point out, if the world had more fathers like you, so people just caring to develop themselves in a way where they will become good parents, just having the intention, if the world had more people like you, we will have way less lonely and angry people out there. So you and your family are already changing the world for the better. I can assure you of that. And one final thing, Oscar. Uh, I remember back then that you asked me, do I know of any books? Do I know of any books that do I know of any books that could help one become a better father? Books for men, let's say. And knowing you and I having previous interactions, I know that you were not asking for a purely practical book, like a 5-step way of becoming the best father ever. So I know that you are open to more nuanced literature that doesn't give easy answers. I said back then that that's something that I have to think about, and it's been a while. It's been a while, and I can apologize for not getting back to you. But Oscar, if it's not too late, I would like to send you a gift, a book from me for the birth of your boy. So if that's okay, I would like you to send me your details on Instagram. So you have a book coming from me. It's going to, at the very least, provide some food for thought, because I didn't forget about our conversation back then, and actually I've been thinking in the context of what you asked me, and also in the context of my own life and my own interest. What are the books that men need? More nuanced than the modern discourse that we have. Masculinity is either something not to be spoken about, or it's something really controversial. Or okay, Oscar, thank you, brother, once again. All the best to you and your family and your beautiful baby boy. Barney, thank you for your patience. I'd like to add that along with reminiscing about the good parts, I also fret about the mistakes I made at these same times. If you must know, this question is in reference to a breakup. Cliche, I know. Okay, let's dive into this. If I can address the statement cliche, I know. I see people, myself being one of those people, that kind of dive into the world of educating themselves beyond formal education, trying to facilitate personal growth through reading books, thinking about things, maybe writing. And I see people, or let's say, in the purely modern way, people who engage in some sort of self-improvement or personal growth, personal development. I see people, because of let's say, acknowledging what life entails and dealing with these, often with big life topics. I see people kind of start being ashamed to admit that love problems are still the biggest problems that or some of the biggest problems that a human can face. So I'm taking some time to address just the fact that you're saying cliche. I know, because there should be no shame that a breakup or a heartbreak is one's struggle. Because why I'm saying this. I cannot tell you, by you, I don't just mean Barney, but everyone here. I cannot tell you how many messages I receive from people who ask for advice, and then they say, this is in relation to going through a heartbreak, and then they express shame because, you're supposed to suffer because of something that is quote unquote more serious, more heavy. I don't know how we arrived at a point where it's, heartbreak isn't much of a, maybe because it's a common struggle, and then we think, oh, okay, everyone has gone through a breakup, everyone who's lived enough has gone through a heartbreak. So yeah, it's not much of a struggle. So we feel ashamed to say that this is my current struggle. There are people out there dealing with terminal illness and things of that sort, but the pain of love still remains, one of the most potent pains that a human can experience. That's been the case throughout history, and it will remain the case as long as we are human. So first of all, a short rant on why it doesn't matter if it's a cliche. Here's what, recently I've actually been writing some notes, some to myself and some hopefully to turn into writing on the past. and actually the clarity quest, the free course, this is not a plug, it's a free course, is part of is partially built on the idea of past as material for self creation, past as material for the story of your life. What do I mean by that? Because of the emphasis on the value of being present, and because we can see around us and in us the negative effects of reminiscing too much. So because of those two things, we are developing the idea that past is something that we shouldn't reflect on. Past is something that we should only occasionally reflect on in order to remember a beautiful moment from the past. So past is a sort of, again, because of the emphasis on being present and because of the obvious negative effects of dwelling on the past, then the concept of the past is becoming something like a nice photo album that you should occasionally visit. Just occasionally, there is this nice photo album. Let's, flip through the pages, remember some good times, and that's it. Nothing more than that. But if you look in the context of self-creation, and looking at your life as a story, because your life is a story, your life should be a story, then you see that past is something to go back into, to extract context for the present, for the future, to extract insight. And past is something that, this is maybe going to sound weird, but you also sometimes have to go back into the past to change it with the new context that you do have. This latter one seems or sounds kind of strange. Here's what I mean by it. So my challenge now, Barney, to you and everyone listening to this, interested in having a healthier relationship with their past. For a moment, let's forget about the past. For a moment, let's focus on looking at the whole life, your life. For everyone here, your individual life, not life as a concept, biological concept, but your individual life, looking at it as a story. So if your life is a story, then every single moment is necessary for every other moment to occur. That's a coherent story. So then, if that's the case, your past still isn't clear, because when you're reading a book, when you're reading or watching a good story, as long as the story is unraveling, it's possible that you will arrive at an insight that changes the context of the past. I'm hoping this is making sense. We should all agree on this, right? If you're reading a good book, excuse me, at any moment, something might happen that changes how you view previous events of the story. Well, your life is a story. So, reminiscing on the good old days or on the bad old days, the story of your past still isn't fully written, because the story of your life still isn't fully written. So then it makes sense to look on the past, to see your past as it is right now. What insight does it provide? If there are mistakes that have been made, as all of us have made mistakes, there is insight there to extract lessons, warnings for the present and the future. But for me, this part that people neglect, or most people are not aware of, is more important to mention. The fact that the idea of everything what's the everything happens for a reason, right? Everything happens for a reason. So here is my challenge. Here is my challenge to you. You know when everything happens for a reason. I can promise you that when everything happens for a reason. That because we say everything happens for a reason in the context of painful past being even if it's 1 minute ago. For the sake of an argument, when we say everything happens for a reason, we say that to console a person or to console ourselves regarding our past, and sometimes in, that past is 1 minute ago because something just occurred. Well, everything happens for a reason. I can promise you that everything happens for a reason when you look at your life as a story, and the only way to truly look at your life as a story and to have this interaction between past, present, and future, and to have this interaction in multiple different directions, the only way to do that is when you actually engage in creation of the story of your life. What do I mean by that? That means that you are, the past isn't anymore something that, okay, I'm trying how to represent it visually. The distance between you and your past isn't result of time, isn't just result of time. The distance between you and your past is result of life experiences. So you're not waiting. When people say like time cures everything, you're not waiting to be cured by the passing of time. That's a passive approach. Passing of time, passive approach. It kind of makes sense. It's a passive approach to resolving the past, accumulating life experiences. That doesn't mean now go bungee jumping 1 week and shooting guns the next week, and then what is the next, I don't know what, jet ski riding. It's not accumulating life experiences like you have to do a bucket list. It's accumulating life experiences in the sense of engaging in the project of yourself. Project of yourself might seem like a vague concept to some people here, but for some people it's clear what the project currently entails. What is the project of you being who you are, of you being who you can be? That's by engaging in the project of who you are. Carl Jung says, like, if you have nothing to create, then perhaps you should create yourself. And that's actually a smart way to the ultimate project. And the ultimate project is self-creation. So to try to kind of summarize it here, because I'm realizing now I went on a on a long rant. If you do look at your life as a story, then past is something that you are inclined to look back on for insight, and that you are inclined to return back to with new context from present as you're creating the story of your life. All of this is if you're looking at your life as a story that is still in creation. The only way to really look at your life as a story, the only way to really treat your life as a story, is to engage in the creation of that story. Because what separates you from your past shouldn't be just time, and the clock ticking. It should be accumulation of life experiences. Your engagement in the project of self-creation. Because if you engage in the project of self-creation, if you engage in your life fully, then things happen for a reason, by the virtue of you, things happen for a reason by virtue of you being forced, in a positive way, forced to take note of what is it from the present that changes something about the past. What is something now with new context from the past that can change my future? It's a constant interplay between past, present, and the future. And I will end with this. That everything happens for a reason. if you engage in the project of self-creation, I'm not here to sell some childish, naive promise of, every pain makes sense, because you realize there was, some perfect reason for it, in the sense of that pain directly brought you something beautiful. I'm not making that promise. For me, that's naive. But if you, again, engage in the project of self-creation, if you engage in your life, then you know how all of those things make sense. Because if you, Barney, or I'm seeing, okay, we have Vincenzo here, or anyone else, or myself, or before Oscar, or all of these people, we have Dimitri here. If at any point in your life you say, I love my life right now, and I love who I am, then by default, you are affirming making peace with all of your past. That's everything happens for a reason. That's a more nuanced, more difficult, but real way to arrive at the point where everything happens for a reason. Because if you can say at any single point, if you can say, I love my life, that's it. You have, quote unquote, solved the problem of your past. As I said, it's not childish, naive promise that now every single mistake or everything wrong that's been done to you seems beautiful. No, but it makes sense in the context of the story of your life, because as long as you love your life and you're engaging in the story of your life, then the past makes sense, because that's what a story is. Excuse me. Now I will stop for a moment to reflect on the messages, because I see the chat has been active. Okay, I will go one by one. Awaken Zen. Do you still use kettlebells, and is it that all you use as of lately? I have a short answer for this. So currently I'm not using kettlebells because I don't have access to them. So currently I'm running and doing pull-ups, push-ups, and dips. I'm looking at buying a kettlebell, because if I'm staying somewhere for longer than 2 months, I often buy a kettlebell. I invest. It's a worthy investment. Yeah, to anyone who has a permanent residence somewhere and who is interested, kettlebells are worthy investment. It's not as if I'm, rich and kind of throwing money around, so buying kettlebells everywhere I stay. But if I'm staying longer than 2 months, definitely worth it. So I'm looking now at buying one. But for the last 2 months, it's been running and pull-ups, push-ups, dips, and occasionally buying a one-day pass for a gym because it's extremely cold here right now. So sometimes just to use some weights. So the point of the kind of philosophy of my training, people think that there is something really special about kettlebells. I love them personally. I do have preference for kettlebells, but the main part of my philosophy of physical training is actually adaptability and flexibility. So for me, the main point isn't to say to everyone, like kettlebells are the best training tool out there. I'm not that. I'm not dogmatic about any aspect of physical training. For me, it's if you're a human who, for any reason, doesn't want to be doesn't want to rely on gym. And I think every human who wants to be physically fit, if you want to be physically fit, are you really physically fit if your physical fitness depends entirely on on you having access to a gym? I'm not sure. It's impressive when I see people who have these can perform these amazing feats of strength, power, explosiveness in the gym. Again, amazing. But kind of my idea of what I want to be, and what I think most people are striving for without actually knowing it, is overall physical fitness that can be maintained in different life circumstances. So that's it. I don't know how to pronounce heartaud. The past of man to redeem, and every it was to transform. Oh, okay, Zarathustra until the will, but so did I will it. So shall I will it. Okay, yeah, Zarathustra. That's what Zarathustra is. Thus spoke Zarathustra by Friedrich Nietzsche to a large extent is, it's a poetic exploration of, let me, okay, Amor Fati, somewhere here. No. Yeah. Is poetic exploration. Zarathustra is in many ways poetic exploration or poetic exploration of eternal recurrence, Nietzsche's eternal recurrence, which does deal with this constant interplay between past, present, and the future. Okay, Barney saying, thanks, this is all helpful. I'd like to add that since this heartache, I find myself craving connection with someone on that level again more than ever. I think this is particularly strong now. Since I have experienced such a strong connection, now it's gone. And this is what I mean when I say I want that back, but it's hindering my own growth. I guess I'm asking how to be okay alone. Sorry for not acknowledging additional messages, especially from Barney, while trying to answer a question. I mean, I don't know if it makes sense to go back to the whole rant, but I will not go back to the whole rant about the past and the story of your life. Although I do believe that actually answers a lot of our love struggles when, and I should say this, when it's clear that something has ended between two people. When it's clear that something has ended, then I think that this acceptance of past as a valuable part and resource in the story of your life, and then the call to continue creating your life. And if you answer the call of creating your life, then you're answering the call of being open to more, or at the very least open to another beautiful genuine connection out there. Dimitri, that's the b-boy d-prank. Shouldn't be here at almost 1 a.m. local time right before going to bed, but here I am. Just wanted to pop in and send some good energy. Have a good one, and may 2025 be a great year. Thank you, Dimitri. I think I'm not able here to see who are the people in attendance right now, but if Dimitri is still here, thank you, brother, for taking the time to join. And thank you all for listening this long rant about the past and the creation of the story of your life. Thank you, Barney, for being. Thank you, Barney, for the question, for being transparent, being willing to be vulnerable here with your question. So, thank you for that. You facilitated this moment that hopefully was available to someone other than you and myself. Do we have anyone else who wants to ask something, share something, make a comment on something? Thank you, Oscar. A few things better in life than a good coffee, if I can say so myself. Any books planning to read this year? Yeah, this is a good one. So this year I'm definitely going to dive into Rollo May, the American existential psychologist. So he's already one of the most frequently mentioned people on my Substack essays, on my Instagram post. I will just acknowledge Barney. Barney, thank you for sticking around. Thank you for an amazing question, and hopefully talk to you again sometime. Thank you. Good night. So, Oscar, back to your question. For I really want to dive deeper into Rolome. Again, he's already one of the most frequently mentioned people, frequently mentioned authors in my writing, because he has influenced me immensely. But I want to dive deeper into his work. I don't know if I can read all of his books. There's quite a lot of them, but I want to study his work. So for me, that's one. That's not one book that's a thinker. So there is, for example, I haven't read his Love and Will. I just started reading Man's Search for Himself last night, and already first chapter, that first chapter actually, could take me a week to go through because of all the notes that I want to make. So Rolome, I want to, because existential humanistic or humanistic existential tradition is something that I resonate with so deeply, and I find them discussing so many problems of our age that are simply unnoticed by so many intellectuals. Not to mention, mainstream psychology. And I'm now kind of tempted to go on a side rant, but the brain disease model of mental health, making kind of a maybe controversial statement here, but it has done so much damage to so much damage to so many people. I am not going to give myself the right to say that it should completely be disregarded, but to be viewed as as the mainstream, for that to be the mainstream view, and that mental health issues are mostly the cause of chemical imbalance, and basically that's why it's called brain disease model of mental health. And I've been helped in my struggles so much by the existential humanistic tradition that completely rejects the brain disease mental health model. And I don't want to get too dramatic, but maybe to some extent I owe my life to existential humanistic tradition. If not in the sense of saving my life physically, then definitely in the sense of engaging in my life fully and truly living with a purpose. So I completely went on a side tangent there. Sorry about that, Oscar. But Rolome, I want to, because he's one of the, if not the figure of the existential psychology movement. Then Irvin Yalom, a person that I want to dive into, and James Hillman, the Jungian analyst that kind of created his own archetypal psychology. So I'm throwing you more thinkers rather than books. You're saying that you have 12 books across different genres that you and your partner are challenging yourselves to read. Can you drop a couple of them in the chat? I'm curious. Luca also going to be. Luca, thank you, brother. Thank you for joining, and see you in the Sisyphus Society. Luca is one of the coolest young men that I know. Let's see. Franco asking, have you ever read something about Lacan? He's a very famous psychoanalyst, and I think that his theory of desire is very compatible with the writings of Rollo May. What do you think? I haven't read anything directly from Lacan. I've read here and there, let's say paragraphs at most, on Lacan, some commentary. And I hope I'm not butchering his last name, but give me some leeway there. I watched a couple of lectures, long form lectures, and I'm talking about actually university lectures. Rick Roderick, for anyone, I love him. I mean, I think he's now not alive anymore, but there are some lectures by Rick Roderick available on YouTube. Let me just type his name in the chat. Rick. So there is I think there is one lecture that is mostly about Lacan. I don't have enough information or any information on his theory of desire. But now, when you tell me that it's compatible with the writings of Rollo May, I have to check it out. Definitely, definitely. So thank you for that, Franco. Khan Demir, did you write for the past 5 years exclusively in English? Yes, yes. Short answer, yes. Just it's been a conscious decision to sort of step away from my native language for a long while. It can get kind of sad sometimes when you are grasping for words in your native language, but don't I don't read. Oh no, sorry, I haven't been reading in my own language, not for the past 5 years, but maybe 10 years, probably more. 15, maybe 15 years. I've read in my own language only what was necessary and a couple of classics of literature of my region. Other than that, English. And I know I still have a long way to go with English, but don't expect me to develop an, to develop American or British accent. I will always be this guy that kind of talks in a way that maybe some of you are guessing I'm Russian, but I'm not. I get it. I know I get it often for my accent, how I speak English. People think that I'm Russian. Outglowing. Wow, this is a cool username. Outglowing. I've delved deep into Eastern spirituality and philosophy. I want to read something a little different from that. What book do you recommend everyone to read? Outglowing, I really love recommending books when there is some context there. So you have already given me some context, as in what you have been reading, but you want something a little bit different. But when you say what book do you recommend everyone to read, that's kind of difficult. Are we talking about fiction, non-fiction? Are we talking about, when you say something different, do you want kind of something that addresses still that same human or similar human needs as that Eastern philosophy and spirituality address, but from a different angle? Or are you looking for something completely different? Because let me put it like this. Rollo May, okay, here it is again, Rollo May, and his book Discovery of Being outlines I will not say history, it's far from a history of existentialist philosophy and existential psychology, but outlines some of the ways how that tradition arose, and draws a parallel between it and psychoanalysis. The movement by Freud that Carl Jung was a part of Alfred Adler, underrated, also psychological giant, Otto Rank. So he draws a parallel between the two, but in drawing that parallel, he also it's not much. That's not what the book is about. But for example, in drawing the parallel, he also makes a connection how those traditions, especially existential tradition, has similarities with Eastern traditions because they are fundamentally addressing the same human need or addressing the same human issues. They're not the same. There are important distinctions between them. But why am I telling you this? For example, that is a book that still will be addressing a lot of the things that you are interested in. So it's different, but addressing things that you are interested in, if I know that you are interested in Eastern spirituality and philosophy. So when you say something a little different, is it something still in the realm of your interest, but from a different perspective, or is it something completely different? So maybe I'm here going to going to end up having a Rollo May live mentioning him all the time, but discovery of being, that would be in if it's the case that you are interested in something addressing the topics that you've been dealing with, but from a slightly different perspective, definitely not opposite perspective. Book that I would recommend everyone to read. Friends, I often refrain, not often, this whole time I've been refraining from giving recommendations without context, but I really do believe that the book Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi is a book that everyone with enough patience should read. Everyone with enough patience should read that book, because I me being this person that I was reading Kierkegaard and Nietzsche and the existentialists, and okay, I want to study Heidegger, which is insanely difficult, and I have to admit, I developed sort of an elitism, and for many years I didn't want to read the book Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. I was like, so why do I need to read a book about how there should be a balance between skills and challenge? Because for the longest time I thought that's the whole point of Flow: balance between skills and challenge, and that's it. No, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi really took on a project that I think is not respected enough. He's not acknowledged enough as a serious thinker. He's not just some kind of psychologist that figured out there is this thing called flow when people are in the zone. No, he was a serious thinker in the sense of addressing the importance of attention as an inner resource. Excuse me. Importance of attention as an inner resource that is one of the driving forces of the quality of one's life, and the dangers of not recognizing attention as such. So the book Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi is definitely something that I think a modern human being in the digital age cannot come out of reading Flow without having a better grasp of what it means for them to live a fulfilling and enjoyable life. Yeah, by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, Oscar. Okay, we have here Margot asking about the purpose. Some heavy hitting questions. So I will get to that. Let me just the easier messages just to acknowledge. Okay, Oscar, share the book, The Road by Cormac McCarthy. I've heard tremendous. I heard it's a tremendous book, but haven't read it. The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. Another. Wuthering Heights. Master and Margarita. That's the only one that I've read from the list, and it's one of my favorite fictional books, at least. Master and Margarita. It's so confusing. That's one book that I wanted to give up reading, even, I believe, almost 100 pages in, but for whatever reason persisted in continuing to read, and ended up being glad that I have. It was confusing for me because of the way that the narration, because of the narration style, and also Russians sometimes get so much confused with all the names, because the same person, sometimes it's this name, then it's their nickname, then it's their last name or first name. Sometimes it really gets confusing. So it was a confusing book. It was frustrating to read initially, but it's a chaotic but beautiful book. So Master and Margarita, definitely worth the read. Can't sing accent is much cooler anyway. Thank you. So okay, we have here Okay, outgoing, adding some context to this and kind of asking about Substack. I will address that, but I cannot skip Margot or Margot. Sorry for not being able maybe to pronounce properly. Maybe it's Margot. What does purpose mean to you? I personally don't see how having a purpose would help me with my depression and anxiety. I just see life as goals, dealing with my needs, avoiding suffering, and seeking pleasure, etc. Okay, this is a heavy one, so let me prepare myself with some coffee. Please allow me. Ooh. Drinking a good coffee, sometimes that is your purpose. No, all jokes aside, I have to immediately disagree with the statement that life is just dealing with needs, avoiding suffering, and seeking pleasure. But you know what I will say? Because someone will try to construct an argument against that. I will begin by saying, Margot, that this is a philosophical discussion, and I do not possess objective truth of reality and of the meaning of life, and no one here does. So I have to start with it. I don't believe in for me it's ridiculous to say you are wrong. I believe that's not the purpose of life, that's not the meaning of life. I strongly believe that. Every single day I think about it. But I'm not going to say I possess objective. So for me, there is no point in trying to construct an objective argument. So I have to lay the ground, the groundwork for what I'm trying to deliver to you. I am not trying to present to you something that I will claim is objective truth. I have no interest in that. And we have here outgoing again mentioning existential psychology and philosophy, and me mentioning it previously. So also this is now for Margot. You know why I'm not delivering you or not trying to make an argument for objective reality here? Because I have no interest in quote unquote objective truth. I am heavily influenced by existentialist philosophical tradition, and specifically Kierkegaard, and that has changed my life, and that has changed my struggle with meaning. Kierkegaard's notion of subjective truth, that is not rejecting that's not rejecting everything that we do know, that is not rejecting science, but as a human being you have to experience truth. There has to be something that is true for you. So that's why I don't deal with objective philosophical arguments. I consider that just to be intellectual exercise. Mostly when we see people try to make these, construct these objective arguments, it's people in academia or people who, I don't know, for whatever reason are interested in analytical philosophy and deal with questions that don't really hold any weight in real life. So this was a long introduction, but it's part of all of this, because then we are not succumbing, or at least are helping ourselves and giving ourselves a fighting chance not to succumb to cynicism when we say there is a subjective truth out there for me. There is something that I can live, a truth that I can live, not a truth that I can perceive rationally and be able to explain in an argument, but I'm not experiencing, I'm not sensing. So for me, life isn't dealing with needs, avoiding suffering, and seeking pleasure. Are all of those parts of life? Yes, but when you say, personally, don't see how having a purpose would help me with my depression and anxiety. Let me start by saying I don't want to say that having a purpose and finding your own meaning will eradicate depression and anxiety, because life is not static. So it's not as if you get, again, it's not a disease. You don't get And I also know these are controversial claims, so maybe I can, maybe I get punished by YouTube for making claims that can be considered medical claims. But I believe, and I'm not, these are not my ideas, these are ideas by some of the greatest thinkers that ever lived, that you don't get depression, you don't get anxiety. Those are not diseases. Those are symptoms of a life that is not lived as it's supposed to be lived by that individual, not symptoms of a life that isn't lived according to some rules that someone else set up. So you have Jungian tradition that says that neurosis, so depression, anxiety, panic disorders, it's all symptoms, signals from the soul. And Jungian says attempt at self-cure. He says neurosis is an attempt at self-cure. How is it an attempt at self-cure? Well, the psyche is sending signal to the ego, the conscious ego, that something is wrong. We cannot go on like this. We cannot live like this. So that signal is a symptom. That symptom is neurosis, depression, anxiety, panic disorders, whatever else it can be. I do subscribe to that psychological and philosophical view. I do fully subscribe to it. From my experience, again, it has helped me immensely. And not just Jungian psychology. Abraham Maslow also says, he says, if I meet someone who has personality problems, and by personality problems, he means mental health problems. There still wasn't really a conception of a mental health problem when he was writing that. And he says, if I meet someone who has personality problems, until I know them better, I'm not sure whether to say I'm sorry or thank God. And not God in a religious sense, but thank God that you have this personality problem, because now you can move forward to who you're supposed to be, what your life is supposed to look like. Now, this is not some pink-colored glasses, everything is rainbow and sunshine view of depression and anxiety. I'm not trying here, Margot, especially now speaking directly to you, I'm not trying to disregard your struggle. If you're struggling right now with depression or anxiety or both, I'm not trying to disregard any of that and say, yeah, read Jung and Maslow, and you'll find your purpose and everything will be okay. I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying that finding your purpose completely eliminates those things, but to pose those things as something, to pose them as two things that have no connection to each other, I think that's absolutely wrong. This has been my experience. That is again the psychological and philosophical tradition that I subscribe to. And when I say subscribe to, I want to be careful here. I'm actually, for these 5 years, I never said, I am an existentialist, I am a Nietzschean, I am a Stoic, I'm this or that. So I'm always open to exploring new schools of thought. But this is, when it comes to neurosis, mental health, this is the tradition that I find addresses human being in a more human, nuanced, holistic way. This was a rant that, I have to acknowledge for a moment that I went on a rant that wasn't the most structured, maybe in terms of the specific question. On a more practical level, or in a more practical sense, you say, I personally don't see how having a purpose would help me with my depression and anxiety. Without now going on these, on these side tangents that I already went on, I would answer, I don't know how having a purpose and waking up feeling like there is something that you have to do and it makes sense for you to do it. Maybe it's not the most fun thing, maybe you're not super excited about how enjoyable it's going to be, but there is something to be done by you. by you specifically, I don't know how it would not help with depression or anxiety. Again, I don't know if this was all over the place. I don't know if anyone found it, Margot, first of all, or Margot, or anyone else, if they found it interesting, valuable, or not. But maybe I should stop myself here because I went on a too big of a rant. Okay. A lot of messages here accumulated. Okay, I will get to everyone, so please. Okay, wow. This, please allow me to go one by one. Outgoing, saying thank you previously for the recommendation. For added context, I'd say a book centered around existential philosophy or psychology. Also, would you ever write a book, or have you? Short answer about my writing: I've written something that ended up being an ebook where I'm talking about consistency, a topic that I never, this is this is the thing about creativity, and some of the people here have heard me talk about this on a workshop. Sometimes there is a responsibility in terms of what you're supposed to write about or speak about. For me, consistency was never something that I really wanted to explore. I wanted to explore these more existential topics. But for example, I ended up writing an ebook about consistency because that's what people wanted out of me. Sometimes people say, it's all good talking about Kierkegaard or Nietzsche or existentialists, and it's all good, but I'm struggling. The person is saying to me, I'm struggling to show up for the most basic habits in my life. And you are this guy who is writing every single day and training every single day, and you look like you're showing up for yourself. So that's how that ended up being, the art of showing up, an ebook that I don't want to now. I don't want to engage in self promotion for a moment, so I will not be sharing now the link for the book. Maybe at some other point. I know all of you are having enough of that, links. But it is that the social, the online game. Sometimes you have to self promote. So I'm not saying I will never self promote, but now for a moment I don't want to focus on what I've written previously. I want to write a book, of course. I want to write a book, but I am giving myself some more time to hone the skill, of writing. I'm writing every single day. I've been writing every day for 5 years, but a couple of topics that I feel called to explore, I want to give myself some more time. And we are not talking necessarily about years and years of more time to prepare, but we are talking about months to prepare in terms of honing the skill, the sharpness of my pen, and more research and thinking on these couple of things that I want to address. But I can sense something. If I'm going to self-publish, I can sense something being ready inside 2025. So thank you for asking that. And when it comes to, for your book centered around existential philosophy or psychology, I would my opinion would be to dive into existential psychology, because when it comes to existential or existentialist philosophy, I don't know why it's existentialist philosophy and existential psychology. Kind of, there is a slight distinction then there in how they're named. I would personally recommend, that's my preference, existential psychology, because, for example, I'm reading, or that is, I'm rereading Meaning of Anxiety by Rollo May, and reading for the first time Man's Search for Himself by Rollo May, and at the same time, like switching between them. And in Meaning of Anxiety by Rollo May, you are getting insights, for example, from Kierkegaard, that it would genuinely take you months of reading Kierkegaard to extract, because we have to face it. That's a difficult thinker to read. I'm not doubting anyone's capacity. I'm just saying, if you are not a person who now has the time, the resource of time to invest in diving into existentialists, it's not as if existential psychology is a simplification, or no, it's again, it's a slightly different thing. But existentialist philosophy, there's a lot to go through there. Where do you start? I mean, it's not as if existentialists they're not like Stoics. Stoics, any Stoic that you pick up, you get the same thing, almost the same thing as you would if you picked up any other Stoic. Existentialist, the tradition of existentialism isn't a coherent tradition in the sense of they have the same set of solutions for certain life questions. No, they're just posing the same questions, and they are concerned with human existence as it is experienced by the human. And that's not the only, that's not by any means a full definition, but definitely existentialists are not a group of thinkers that are providing same solutions. That's why I'm happy to say I subscribe largely to existentialist and existential view and perspective, because that doesn't mean I'm subscribing to a set of rules and solutions. It's just what are the questions that I'm concerned with. Again, low excited. So I guess Rollo may he rest in peace, is being mentioned a lot today. And let's continue with it, and recommend another by him. So outlawing, what I will recommend to you is Discovery of Being. Is interesting to get to maybe start diving into this. Meaning of Anxiety is a exploration, as it says, of anxiety. So it's definitely addressing different traditions. But I would urge you to online read a brief overview of Meaning of Anxiety. Rollo, again, now I'm tempted to just continue recommending by Rollo May, because, and it's also something I have to say, I'm really biased, but existential philosophy, I mean, there are good sort of introductions to existentialist philosophy, but I'm not sure I have one to recommend, a specific one. I'm not sure. I would much rather advise someone to dive into, rather than now reading some sort of a textbook adjusted for general population, textbook on existentialist philosophy that dives into Kierkegaard, maybe Nietzsche's sort of proto-existentialist, and then later the quote-unquote official existentialists. I'm not sure. I would rather recommend existential psychology. Okay. Outlawing. I don't know if this was helpful or not in any way. I guess we'll have to continue this interaction. Let me know if there is any book that you ended up reading or being interested in. Khan is saying, I like spending time on Substack and reading people's writings, but at the end of the day, can it be a substitute for reading actual books? Isn't it still considered a type of social media? Depends on you're right. It depends on the writing. Can it be a substitute for reading actual books? I I think it should not be viewed as an attempt at a substitute for books, because I, again, it's contextual. Is the person that you're reading, the people that you're reading, are they writing? Is that intended? Do you think they are writing with the intention to provide substitute for books? Mm, I think some of those things, some of the things that you read should actually get you interested in certain books. If you're a type of person that gets intellectual, maybe even spiritual stimulation from reading certain things on Substack, I think you should give yourself that pleasure of diving deeper into these certain topics. Because if I write an essay on anxiety and existentialist view of anxiety, I'm hoping that someone will go down the rabbit hole and not just stop at reading what I have written, but go down the rabbit hole and maybe dive into some of these topics. If I write about the answering the call to adventure, and the inner call to adventure, and embarking on the hero journey, I'm hoping that someone will pick up Joseph Campbell, or at the very least some Jungian analysts like James Hollis, not necessarily Jung, because also I'm not sure really that reading directly Carl Jung is a worthy time investment for most people. I'm really, really, really not sure that for most people it makes sense. But James Hollis, that's a writer, an author, a thinker that I can recommend to everyone. So yeah, I would say, don't feel guilty that you are spending time on Substack. At the end of the day, you have to take inventory of your time. Even because you say, isn't this still considered type of social media? Yeah, every platform that aims at increasing their users has to act like a social media in some sense. But what I would say is that when it comes to spending your time, you can read the quote unquote greatest book, whatever the greatest book would be, and you could still be not using your time correctly, because there is maybe something out there less interesting but more important for you to do. So I've been guilty of doing that. So then with that in mind, then you don't have to feel guilty about being on Substack or this or that. You first have to just see in the context of your life and what you're supposed to do that day. Maybe it makes perfect sense to spend 5, 10, 15 minutes reading a Substack post that will be a bridge towards exploring a certain idea further. But I would encourage you to not stop at Substack. Have you read any C.S. Lewis? I found value in how he talks about negative thoughts. Anything that I read by C.S. Lewis, I found value in. I never read a full book. I'm are constantly finding these aphorisms, paragraphs. I've read some of his letters, and that's a writer that I have to read for the sake of, I would say, nurturing my soul. C.S. Lewis is definitely someone on my list to dive in a bit deeper, not in this sense of studying, but in the sense of just letting him do the magic. So I'm not sure this precisely how he talks about negative thoughts. What like, I don't have the reference right now, but everything that I read by him has been beautiful. Beautiful is the word. Miss Melanie saying, "I love Kierkegaard." Melanie, greetings to you. This is one of the people that I think has been a supporter of mine since definitely the very first year that I've started being online, if not some of the first months. So Thank you, Melanie, for that. I really appreciate you, really do. Franco saying, how do you see the actual status of psychology as a health field? Mhm. Psychology as a health field. Ooh, I'm tempted to say, okay, well, I'll say it like this. I'm tempted to say that psychology, com- mainstream contemporary psychology, is a failed project. I'm tempted to say that. And that is, I know, again, controversial statement. And also, I know wonderful people with psychology degrees, and I know people in school for psychology now, and who I believe can and will make a positive difference in the world. But psychology as an institution, I believe, is largely a failed project, and I'm being convinced more and more of that as I really seriously study the great psychologists. Mm, because in the last 5 years, multiple times I've been tempted to go back to school specifically for psychology, but again, you're just when you like basically all the greatest psychologists, a lot of their writing, a lot of their most important writing is criticizing the institution of psychology as it is today. Or if they're writing in the 70s, 80s, they're criticizing the institution of psychology as where it's headed. And them criticizing unfortunately didn't change the trajectory. So this is not for everyone here. So this is not to say, you know, don't talk with a psychologist or a psychiatrist, therapist. I'm not saying, disregard the professionals, but yeah, I Maslow, like his later works, he's trying to reimagine, rework what psychology is, and he's completely. I mean, he was completely like disregarded. But they want to put hierarchy of needs and the pyramid that he never drew. Maslow never drew a pyramid for hierarchy of needs. So they want to put that in psychology textbooks. But when he gets philosophical, because all great psychology uh, has to be in communication with philosophy. When he gets philosophical, then he is disregarded. You know. And another thing I will say about psychology. What Maslow says: you cannot measure responsibility in white rats. When he's talking about how taking on a responsibility is a step towards self actualization, and he says, but we cannot measure this in white rats, so it's hardly going to become a part of the uh, consensus part. It's how can you measure and quantify the effect of taking on responsibility? Well, if you cannot measure it and quantify it, then how are you going to put it in standardized procedures, so on and so forth? So unfortunately, uh, I would say that because the psychologist should be the doctor of the soul, of the psyche. I do believe that, for example, psychologists today are not doctors of the soul. Doctor of the soul has to deal with a lot of things that cannot be quantified and expressed in numbers. Well, if things cannot be expressed in numbers, we are, as humans, but especially in the modern culture, we are tempted to want everything. We want everything to be standardized. Everything can be put in a framework, in a standardized model. Well, seriously addressing the questions of the soul makes it difficult to do so. So that's my chaotic answer on the question of how I look at the actual status of psychology as a health field. David, my friend, I remember you as well from the workshop. Thank you for joining here as well. I sense there is a need for people like us to have a space to share their life stories, their ideas. I think it's very difficult unless you live in a bigger city to meet like-minded people. I would tell you that it can be even more difficult in a bigger city in the modern culture. David, there is great concept of third places or third spaces. Let me just for a moment. Third places. So I think everyone should look into this concept. I'm actually going to link it. Excuse me. Third place. Disappearance of third places is something that, okay, everyone. Here I'm dropping it in the chat. Wikipedia page of the third place. So David, for you, I'm not now trying to discourage you in any way. I'm just trying to tell you that what you're experiencing, I understand how in a small environment it can be difficult. It was difficult for me back in Montenegro. I was just extremely fortunate to make a connection with a couple of individuals that are actually my brothers. My I cannot view them even as friends. That I can connect with on a deeper level, but the problem of connection or the lack of connection is a problem of the modern human being, not just of the human being living in a small place or living in a environment that isn't maybe intellectually progressive or open-minded enough. So the concept of the third place is something that's not home and it's not work. That's why it's the third place. And what was that before? That was the city square, that was the cafe, that was the barber shop, that was the sports court, that was the third place. It's disappearing. Third places are disappearing from the modern world. And I can tell you now, having lived in multiple different cultures, metropolises, multi-million people cities and living in smaller places, I acknowledge, David, that like-minded individuals and what you say, that people sharing their life stories, their ideas, you get a better chance at meeting those people simply by the virtue of more numbers in a bigger city. But when it comes to how easy or difficult it is to actually spend quality time with those people in a bigger environment, it's a whole new challenge because of this disappearance of the third places, because everyone is living at their high pace of life, and it again a new set of challenges. Again, not trying to make this discouraging, just trying to say this is definitely a modern issue of the modern individual is the problem of lack of connection. And I'm a proponent of engaging in the real world, but I can tell you that we have to accept the fact that a lot of our life is taking place online. That's just a fact. That's something that we cannot for now escape. escape. So I would urge everyone to consider if they are truly connecting with people online, because that has changed my life. That has truly changed my life, and I can tell you that there are meaningful connections to be found online. And again, hopefully this now, David, and for everyone else, having a chance here to interact brings some value. EA Matelli, I don't know if that's again pronouncing correctly. Hello, man. I like your posts. Some of them are interesting. Thank you. I really appreciate you. I see two questions. I will address them. Just for example, just for a moment, to also acknowledge Franco saying, Lacan recommends something to read something that directly theory of desire. Specifically, I think this would be compatible with the idea of the courage to create of May. Oh, Franco, you're speaking my language. The Courage to Create is one of my favorite books. I'm not going to put it at the top of the list, but it's up there. Franco, again, you're speaking my language, so I have to check out the theory of desire. Miss Melanie saying Heidegger is good on anxiety. He definitely is. As good as it gets. Okay, do you think that the space of the Stoic philosophy are mantras to deal with some of life hardships are being overmarketed and made into a superficial product for a quick fix? I'm curious. Okay, that's the separate question. So, okay, let me try to make this organized and short so that I don't go on too long of a side tangent, and then because I want to address everyone here. So for anyone who has asked, okay, let me first say this: anyone who has asked a question, if you are able to stick around, please stick around, because I will address every question that I'm asked. And just as you see, I sometimes give answers that are too long. So Stoic philosophy, short answer: I absolutely do think that aspects of Stoic philosophy, or Stoic philosophy as a whole, is being compressed into whether you want to call it quick fix or you want to call it, how there is now this term broicism. So it's as for anyone else or for everyone else, Stoicism was a big part of me getting into philosophy, because it is a sort of a gateway into more complex philosophical thinkers. And still, Stoics have some texts that are not just easy, quick reads. However, I don't like how I wanted to say I don't like how mainstream Stoicism has become, but that maybe sounds too elitist. I also don't want to be gatekeeping philosophy from anyone, but it's definitely being oversimplified, overused. And I don't like that we are now at the point where, or we have been now for a while, at a point where for so many people out there, philosophy equals Stoicism. Because so many of these people that are out there giving out advice and that have a platform, the only thing that they can reference from philosophy is Stoicism. So then you are slowly building this idea that philosophy is Stoicism. there is so many people out there who genuinely think there is no argument against Stoicism. Like, you know, I believe I was influenced by Stoicism, and of course, as every young man, when I first read Stoicism, I was like, oh, okay, this is it. This is a framework for living life. But you have to continue exploring. You have to continue reading. There are other people out there, and then you find out, okay, this is actually not a framework. Or this is, these are some smart people who had some really good ideas, but far from delivering us the final set of rules on how to live life. And nowadays, I have a lot of disagreements with Stoicism. So I'm definitely not a fan of it being this this pop philosophy pop philosophy thing, where again it's considered the same. The philosophy is Stoicism is the philosophy for a lot of people out there. How did your family's religious and or spiritual background shape your own beliefs? I've shared this story maybe one or two times on my Instagram stories. I'll try to deliver it in a short manner, as so that I can continue answering other questions. But thank you, interesting question. It has shaped my own beliefs in a way where I come from a mixed family in terms of religion, but no one really, I would say, religious in the sense of practicing the religion in a conventional way. So mixed. And also, this is a good moment to say, because on my mother's side everyone is Orthodox Christian. So if anyone else here is Orthodox Christian, happy Christmas to you. Or if you understand my language, Christos se rodi. So on my mother's side everyone is Orthodox Christian. On my father's side, Orthodox Christian, Catholic Christian, and Muslim. But on my father's side, really no one really practicing their religion. So especially I never met anyone because of the wars and stuff. So I never met anyone from the family tree, from the from the father side, who was Muslim. So I was never introduced truly with the Muslim tradition, but also not to Catholic Christianity. So in terms of practicing religion, all that I was exposed to was Orthodox Christianity, but not in some sense that we were going to church or anything like that. Just, for example, celebrating Christmas in the Christian Orthodox calendar, and Easter, things like that. But beliefs, have they shaped me? Well, because I was from a mixed family, which isn't really common in my country. Because I was from a mixed family, I could notice that there is something different, or something different other than the other kids. So somewhere beginning of elementary school or middle school, depending how you call it, I did ask my parents, what do we believe in? Because there are kids out there, also coming from a environment that is, I would say, definitely, it deserves to be called toxic. Now the word toxic is thrown around, but I do believe it's toxic when kids 6, 7 years old, 8 years old are asking each other, not out of curiosity, but out of the wrong reasons. Are you Christian? Are you Muslim? What do you believe in? So in that kind of environment, I asked my parents, like, what do we believe in? Because I can sense something, we are kind of different here. And they both told me, like, that's for you to decide. you will believe what you decide to believe in. So now I'm realizing, how bold that was. And they were not some hippie parents. They were really normal parents. By the Western world standards, I would say they were maybe conservative parents. Like, they were definitely not some hippie parents, but that's how they were in terms of religious beliefs. So to a 6-7 year old, they said you're going to decide what you believe in, which is one of the greatest gifts that I've been given, but it's also that has you know already a 7 old when that happened. My wrestling with the concept of religion and God starts, and it hasn't ended. So yeah, that's that's how I was influenced by my family's background, by being given the ultimate freedom by my parents to decide what I'm going to believe in. Again, today you would think those were some woke parents, but no, they were really, or the word woke, again, a word that I don't know what it means anymore, but they were normal parents back then, just people who, because they dared to enter a mixed marriage in a time of civil war, that was a civil war that happened because of religion and nationalism. So when they were so brave to enter a mixed marriage, when people were killing each other because of differences in their beliefs, you could sense that those people were, if they were brave enough to do that, then of course they're not going to restrict their child and his development. Sorry, the sun is rising, so now I'm being hit with the sun. So yeah, that's the story of how I've been influenced. Okay, just a second. Looking down, a lot of people here. So let me. I'm going to get through everything. So just. Mhm. Okay. Mm. So that's I addressed. The last was the family's religious or spiritual background. I'm continuing, but friends, let me just pull the curtain down, because the sun is now rising, and I am fortunate enough to have this beautiful window, but it's kind of uncomfortable as I'm speaking to you. So let me just. Sorry if the noise from the curtain is now too big, but I have to. Curious about you, if you don't mind. What do you do in your life, and what social class do you belong to? What do I do in my life is I do this, pull the curtain down while talking to people live on YouTube. In all seriousness, if you're asking what do I do for living, or whatever, what however that question is phrased nowadays, what do I do in my life? I write, and I'm blessed in my life to be able to write and produce educational content, and to earn a living from that, and also to earn a decent portion of my income from a community that I have, online community called Sisyphus Society. As you see here, I'm refraining from doing any self promotion, because I generally want to engage with all of you, engage with your questions. So the educational content that I'm creating, the writing that I'm doing, and the online community that I have, and I have to say, community of beautiful human beings that I engage in, like, we engage in conversation on live calls, and I share certain resources with them, and engage in conversations where it's not me as a wizard of Oz speaking to them as an authority, but actually a genuine back and forths where people get to speak. That's what I do for a living. Again, blessed beyond words. but it's been a long journey to get there. So I'm not going to say here that I'm not going to sell you the story of, I'm this guy who has a Lambo because of his online business, and I can teach you how to do the same. For me, it's been a long journey, and not far from a glamorous journey, to be able to say I'm making a living from what I'm passionate about. Before that, I was an air traffic controller in Montenegro, in my home country. An air traffic controller is, extremely interesting job, extremely stressful, dynamic, and I'm grateful for what it provided me before I left it. A social class, middle class in Montenegro. That's how I grew up. I can never say that my family or myself have struggled financially, but you know what was available to me as a middle class person in Montenegro maybe probably isn't much by the Western standards. Not probably, definitely isn't much by Western standards, but that's it. Middle class. How do you call it? The proletariat? No, jokes aside, middle class, working class in Montenegro. Beautiful but troubled and sick Montenegro. Have you ever read anything on Advaita Vedanta? Oof, I'm probably butchering the pronunciation. I never read anything. I've never read. Okay, I'm going to just copy this Gita. I never read anything. That's something that I know I have to dive into. Okay, I have to dive into Hinduism. This is Hinduism, right? I have to dive into that, but haven't read anything. How much did JP, probably Jordan Peterson, influence you, and how do you feel about him now? I'm not going to say that he didn't influence me. He did influence me. He did act as a bridge for me towards some serious thinkers, some important ideas. I'm going to give him his credit, definitely. How do I feel about him now? The way that you ask the question, how do I feel about him? Feelings. Largely disappointment. Thoughts. I believe if he wanted to make the biggest positive impact that he as an individual is able to make on this world, he should have stuck to helping people understand Carl Jung and helping people understand how much of a great psychologist Dostoevsky was, and yes, analyzing biblical texts from psychological perspective, but his political engagement is, and this is not about me, saying I'm left or I'm liberal, or this is not me taking, like, on a human level, his political engagement is, and also on an intellectual level. On an intellectual level, dishonest or uneducated enough on the matters, even world history. I don't know if anyone here is from Europe, where maybe, and also not taking any. I don't want to take any. I don't want to throw any hate towards the US side, but US people themselves really criticize their public education. I don't know if there are any people from Europe here, and I don't know for you, but I've learned World War II in elementary school, in high school. Pretty in, I would say, in a lot of detail. So I don't know how someone can. Let me say this, and I will. I don't want to go too much down this rabbit hole, but yeah, you can sense that now it's there is no return. I want to finish my thought. I can understand all the criticism for totalitarian communist regime, but it's very dangerous to put a sign of equality between Nazi Germany and Soviet Union. You can criticize it totalitarian regime, but even on simply on the level of facts, not even diving deeper into political landscape of that time, but World War II would not be won by tens of millions of Soviet soldiers. So how can you put Nazi Germany and Soviet Union as the same? Because that's what that man has done largely, and has miseducated millions of people in the West. Millions of people in the West, because unfortunately education is terrible everywhere, but especially again US people say themselves that public education is pretty terrible. So he has actively miseducated people on recent world history. Because I will just say this: a famous, really famous podcaster that I don't want to now call out, has in some sort, while having a political guest, has made a remark. Do you believe that in China and Russia they have World War II winner parades to this day? Like, what's that about? So there are people out there with platforms where millions of people listen to them, who don't understand that those countries as well participated as good guys. If now we want to divide it, good guys, they participated as the good guys in the World War II. That wasn't too long ago. But when you have an intellectual who is really not giving enough nuance when trying to criticize political systems that he doesn't agree with, then you end up with millions of people, and some of them also people with platforms of millions of people who don't understand who don't know basic world history. So this was a long rant that I didn't intend to go into, but now it is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. Okay, let's continue. Don't want to dive too much into politics. You know why? Also, I don't want to dive too much into politics, because the same reason what I'm talking about Peterson. Because listen, if there is someone that disagrees with everything that I believe politically, and I disagree with everything that I disagree with everything that they believe politically, I still want that person to, for example, that person is suffering from anxiety. I'm still hoping that some things that I say about anxiety can reach that person. So then I'm thinking, I don't want to remain fully silent on certain issues. Definitely, I believe every human has every conscious and thinking citizen of the world has a responsibility to speak out on certain things. So I'm definitely in favor of that, or of that. Let's all of us take responsibility to be citizens of the world and address certain issues. Let's talk about them. Let's talk about them in a mature way. However, to fight political battles, I don't want to fight political battles. Or again, for most issues, there are certain issues that I truly think we have to continuously engage in the conversation about. But let's not alienate each other. Let's help each other. David asking, how many books a year do you finish reading? How many books do you read at a time? David, this is a great way to ask a question. How many books a year do you finish reading? I have no idea, because I have no set goal of the amount of books to finish reading, but I can tell you that maybe 30% of books that I start reading, I finish. And not because 70% of the books that I start reading are not worth finishing. It's because I extract from them what I need at that time. So it's good that you ask how many books a year do you finish reading, because there are books that I have started reading maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I've been returning to them but haven't still finished them fully. There are books that I think are tremendously valuable, but I had to stop reading because it didn't make much sense for me to continue reading them. So for me, book when it's nonfiction. So for fiction, I want to read from cover to cover. I want to follow the whole story. But when it's nonfiction books, I approach them as an explorer, if I can say. So I approach them as an explorer, trying to extract what I need from the book, if I know specifically what I need, or to see what this book has to offer for me or offer to me. So rather than now putting a number on how many books, and because I want to break the stigma around the number of books, I can tell you in the past 5 years that I've been really active in my pursuit of knowledge. I'm sure there are a couple of years there where I maybe finished reading 10 books in a year, maybe not even 10, but I have read for hours every day. So I think, I had, as everyone probably, way back, I had this, idea. I want to read 100 books in a year, and you'll be able to look at that stack of books. But now I much rather, instead of looking at a stack of 100 books that I've read in a year, I want to have the knowledge, and also I want to write. I want to write. So at this moment, I want to write twice as much in terms of hours spent than I want to read. Okay. Eleazar Lopez. Hey David, is there a way I can buy the recording from the workshop a few weeks back? Yeah, we can make it happen. I don't want to engage in business transactions on this live. I'm really careful about wanting to make this feel for all of you like a genuine chat between us. So I don't want to engage in business transactions. But Eleazar, if you're still watching, you can drop me a message on Instagram, and I will remember your name. Okay, Oscar, he's here recommending Screw Tape Letters, favored by C.S. Lewis. Let me just copy this and open in a new tab for later. Okay, let's continue. Now I'm realizing, wow, I'm going on these long rants. I'm realizing how difficult it is for. Wow. How many messages? I'm kind of sorry, everyone. I'm kind of overwhelmed, overwhelmed by the amount of messages and how much people care to engage. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And also realizing how far behind I am with what, because I'm now realizing certain comments on things that I've said what feels like an hour ago. So let me try to, okay. Thoughts on mainstream music, given that music is something most people consume in abundance, even when they exercise self-control in other areas. Should we question its influence? Should we continue consuming it despite creators and lyrics often reflecting the moral corruption in our society? And could this abundance have a negative impact on our minds? I will try it again. Now I will really try to kind of move quickly, but still not too quickly, and address everything properly. Nicholas, here is my thoughts. One of the biggest changes in my personal growth journey has been deciding not to listen to what I perceive as destructive or self-destructive music. For me, that was rap music, and more precisely, rap music that speaks about cars and women in a degrading way, and drugs. And I'm not now going to act here as a preacher and have this maybe dogmatic religious undertone and say stop listening to music that is sending these wrong messages. There are people out there who maybe are not influenced by music so much. I am heavily influenced by music, and I just recognized that. So for me, one of the before the books, before reading Nietzsche, before reading Henry David Thoreau, one of the biggest steps and the most impactful steps on my personal growth journey was deciding not to listen and listen and deciding not to listen to that type of music. And I had periods of time, long periods of time, where I didn't listen to anything with lyrics even. However, okay, those were some experiments, and since then I went to parties. Not too many. I visited clubs, and I'm far from a saint. So still, sometimes maybe I became a bit more balanced in that approach, but I think people should really take note of how the music that they're listening to affects them, and also in what kind of setting. I really, at this point in my life, I cannot understand how someone can listen to that type of music while sitting at home. Okay, you really want to go to a party, depending on what type of parties people visit. And I'm not here, I'm not the guy to tell you, male self-improvement, especially for men. Don't go to clubs, disappear for 5 years. No, I'm not going to tell you that. Live life, engage with people, and sometimes engaging with people means going to social places that maybe are not the healthiest, but exercise responsible choices. So outside of the setting of a party, I don't understand how we can like, I've done it previously, poison myself with this. Again, I consider it destructive or self-destructive music. And especially I have to, as a young man, early in my life, rap music um, really did a damage in terms of uh, subconsciously changing my perception of women, and what I should expect from women, and how I should behave with women, and what a relationship should look like. And I will end also with, so I think your question is, you're saying this is not an existential question. This is more existential question than a lot of questions that people. Most importantly, this is a philosophical question in the positive sense of the word, not intellectual masturbation, excuse my language, but philosophical question, really, philosophy of life. So, Nicholas, you are thinking about the right things. If you're still listening, if you're here, Nicholas, you are on the right track. And I will point out another thing now, regardless of the quality of music, as something for everyone here, because Nicholas mentioned this. When you play music and stop everything that you're doing and you are listening to the song, let alone listening to the full album, because that's what music was previously. You didn't have access to music non-stop. That was something like, okay, this is a moment, we bought a record, we are going to play it now. Okay, let's sit down, let's listen to this song, let's listen to this album, and everything stops. We have gathered here to listen. And let's, not to mention even more, even further back into the past, there were no records, so you're going to an event. Your day had no background music, like our days do. You're going to an event, you're getting ready for an event, you sit down, and then the music starts. Imagine how different that experience of music is. So when we say, I love music, I'm not sure how much we are able to appreciate music nowadays when it's just background noise. So, genuine question for everyone here: when was the last time when listening to music was an activity? So, nothing else. You're sitting down, or maybe laying down, or whatever, and listening to music actively. David, his reaction to me saying psychology is a failed project. Again, man, I hope you acknowledge my nuance by saying I know wonderful people are in the field of psychology and will make a difference. It's just that the institution of psychology, as as a concept, as a project, is in big trouble. Let's say, but David, again, I'm hoping this is not as you're saying here. Someone has to fix it. So I'm hoping you're not taking this as a discouragement, but as a challenge for you to be one of those people who are making a difference. Franco, I haven't read Freedom and Destiny, so I'm not able to answer that. But it's on my list, so hopefully maybe we can both exchange ideas on it when we read it. Eleazar again asking, have you ever thought about writing a book? If you have, what kind of genre? As I said previously, yes, I have. And in what kind of genre is difficult to say genre. One of my dreams is actually, one of my biggest dreams is actually at one point to write fiction, because I believe we learn through stories the best, and I believe fiction is actually, that's where the greatest wisdom is. But now, in the near future, in the somewhat near future, on the project that I'm able to tackle in writing is nonfiction, and genre would be hopefully bringing existential humanistic tradition back in front of the people. And since I'm not a actual psychologist, when I say existential humanistic, because that's psychological and philosophical tradition, I have to bring it in my own way. But I'm hoping that I can make it work. Future 3K saying, what to do when you've tried everything to improve in your life successfully, and you're still suicidal. I don't even know what I want anymore, It's so hopeless. I don't have the idols I used to as a kid. Thank you for being brave enough and vulnerable to share this and to ask this. First, I would like to see if future 3K is still here listening to this. I'm noticing your profile image is from Haikyuu, right? From Haikyuu anime. It's one of my favorite fictional stories that I ever read and watched. And I'm talking all fictional stories, of all the fictional stories. The first thing that I will tell you when you say this is, again, something that I believe in, something that I have experienced and I've seen in people, is to acknowledge that there isn't anything uniquely broken in you about you. I would ask you to hold on to that belief. Hold on to that belief as strongly as you can. That is, the one thing that you have to hold on to. That there is nothing uniquely wrong or messed up with you for feeling that way. When you say tried everything to improve your life successfully, there is a lot of context to be shared there. I'm not sure if you're still here, but I have to. I'm not trying not to now share too much of my experience. I can tell you that I've dealt with. I can tell you that I've dealt with that. I'm trying not to rely too much on my experience, not because I don't want to share, but because I'm trying not to start telling a story that will make this as if I'm speaking about myself. But forgetting about the idea of when this thing about me is going to end finally and once and for all, forgetting about that idea and thinking about how can I engage in this moment of my life, hopefully in this day, what can I make meaningful, interesting, or enjoyable about this day. And maybe it's not even about this day, maybe it's about this hour or this moment. And maybe there is nothing to be found that is enjoyable in the state that you're in, but meaningful. And to accept it and to not accept, first to reject the nihilistic idea. It's nihilistic idea of the objective meaning of life, universal meaning of life. And to find your meaning of life right now. Maybe even today, what's the meaning of your life? What's the meaning of your life today? The meaning of my life today is to do this live. And after that, after that, to go for a run and have a meal with my partner. That's the meaning of my life today. Kind of, I'm not even joking. I have a strong sense of what the meaning of my life is, of my life as a whole. But sometimes I've been in that position. I would love if I was able to address you by your name right now. But the future 3K, I've been in the position where I didn't want to get out of bed, and at night, I was afraid to stay alone with my own thoughts. Quite literally, I was afraid to go to bed, and then when I go to bed, I would hope to fall asleep as soon as possible. Then when I would wake up again, I would be terrified to get out of bed and engage with the world. And I can tell you that it gets better, not from one single thing, not from one single, whether it's simple or complex solution. It gets better. It gets better. And you say here, trying to improve life successfully. There's still work to be done, I believe, and I'm really trying to say this in a loving way. I'm not trying to disregard the efforts that you have put in so far, but you have to keep experimenting with what is it that your life needs. And when you say I don't have the idols that I used to as a kid, what are the first steps to take when you're so tired of living, but there is nothing wrong? What does it mean that there is nothing wrong? How nothing is wrong on the checklist of how a life is supposed to look? Because I can tell you that my first bouts of despair and depression were when I was doing really well in life. So when you say there is nothing wrong, there is nothing wrong externally. All the societal boxes have been ticked off. But are you being called to live life in a different way? But what are the first steps? The first steps are, and that's also, I'm there influenced by Jung. Do the next, do the best thing, not the next. Do the, or maybe he says the next best thing, but it's do right now what you can do. Do right now what you can do, and again and again and again. To engage in your life, and to zoom in rather than the advice of zooming out. Zoom out. It doesn't matter in grand scheme of things. No, zoom in zoom in as much as it's needed. Maybe it's all about completing the task that's in front of you right now. Not maybe, it is in the case of failing to see any meaning in life, and failing excuse me, and failing to see if life is worth living. That is not an invitation, and this is a view that not everyone has to agree with, but failing to see how and why life is worth living, I don't believe it's an invitation for you to contemplate the meaning of life as a universal meaning of life, and not even an invitation to contemplate the meaning of your life as a whole, but it's an invitation to recognize what you need to do right now. Sometimes what you need to do is as trivial as fold the laundry, and sometimes what you need to do as life-changing as apply for that school, or apply for that other job, or call that person. I would love to continue talking to you, but I think this deserves a back and forth. So future 3K, if you're still listening, send me a message on Instagram. And someone, I'm your safe space, said, yay, I caught you live. Thank you for a beautiful message. Oscar saying Stoicism is misinterpreted, I believe. Probably to some extent. Eleazar, man, you have such a powerful name. I love your name, Eleazar. Am I pronouncing it correctly? If you're still here, I would love to know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Eleazar, are you going to post more on YouTube this year? I enjoy watching your content. Definitely, definitely. That's one of the most important projects for me this year. And I'm preparing now a script for something that's going to be a long video. And I even got access now to a kind of a room where I will, because I would like to do some lecture style videos. Not to say that I'm a professor of any sort, but deliver my ideas in a more organized way and hopefully have a like truly educational video, and sometimes more free flowing. But yeah, I will play with different things, and we'll be looking forward to your feedback. Victoria is saying hi, David. And actually, by the way, for anyone wondering, it's David. That's my name, David. Hi, David. I got curious about the disagreements you have about Stoicism. I'm only asking because I would like to expand in that subject too. My disagreement with not disagreement. Let me start by saying this, or maybe that already counts as a disagreement. So, I am now viewing Stoicism as a set of tools, but an incomplete set of tools, or a set of tools where there are certain tools from that toolkit, toolbox, tool set that I believe are useful, not as a philosophical system to be fully accepted. Stoicism is, and there is no denying it, Stoicism is a defensive attitude towards life. Like, there is no way to argue that on a ground of philosophical argument. Stoicism is a defensive attitude towards life. It's an attitude of defense. That doesn't make it wrong or bad. But a question is, do you want to accept, to take that as your life philosophy? That do you want to take and say, oh, I'm a stoic? If you're a stoic, that is, you're taking a defensive attitude towards life. It took me also some time to realize that, but because the philosophy of Stoicism is not being as affected by the troubles of life as the average human is, by reinterpreting, or sorry, not reinterpreting, by acknowledging what is in your control and what isn't, and shifting focus from things outside of your control to things in your control. Excuse me, I'm having some trouble with my throat. So it's about how to set your focus so that you are not affected by things coming your way. The philosophy, the main prescription of Stoicism is a solution on how to protect yourself from what life hits you with, and that is wonderful. But it's a tool rather, I think it's a tool rather than a complete life philosophy to take on. And we cannot deny, we have to accept that a fully, like a stoic, someone living fully embodying, which again Epictetus said, show me show me a stoic. You cannot, because there is no one who is truly fully a stoic. But a person who is truly a stoic would be a boring person. Ryan Holiday, Ryan Holiday is, I respect what he's done, but he's way too invested. His personal brand depends on him continuing to talk about stoicism. So he's trying to make this argument that stoicism isn't cold and boring. Stoicism, like, with all due respect, but like, a fully stoic person would be a cold and boring person. There is no denying it. There is no place for passion in stoicism. Find me Seneca, the least stoic of the stoics and the most human of the stoics, is the one who allows for humor and passion and human stupidity. Again, tremendous value in stoicism, tremendous value in stoicism. I still love stoicism, but stoicism as a complete life philosophy, I wouldn't want to live in a world of stoics where everyone is stoic. That would be, I think, a boring, cold world. Margot saying, "Are you atheist?" Sorry if you already said I'm atheist. I'm not an atheist, and thank you for your answer. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sticking around. I'm not an atheist. I've considered myself an atheist for most of my life. But here is the thing: me saying that I'm not an atheist doesn't mean that I'm subscribing to any certain religion. And also, the saying that you're spiritual kind of has lost its meaning now. It's been kind of bastardized. What does it mean to be spiritual? Does it mean that I have to go to Bali and meditate in a villa that I'm renting out for $500 per night with pool and jacuzzi? Is that being spiritual nowadays? Or taking ayahuasca in Costa Rica? I don't know what is spiritual anymore. It's kind of really saying that you're spiritual has gotten a bad rep because of a lot of new age high class spirituality. But when I say I'm not an atheist, that means I'm not subscribing to believing that there is nothing out there. Again, also not subscribing to a religion, but I'm a person with a sensibility towards something bigger, deeper, that can maybe guide us in some way. Do you find yourself getting overwhelmed with your concept of religion and God? If so, what resources do you use to decompress? Well, what's the thing? This is I'm not anymore. Sometimes if I'm going to sit and let the train of thought run and really start thinking about, I can get overwhelmed. I think not to get overwhelmed by the idea of God and religion and the meaning of all of this and how can kids get sick. And that's for me, for example, an overwhelming thought. How can it's that's for me the most troubling thought of all. Wars, we have created wars, but how can kids get sick? That's just sick. I mean, terminally ill. How can that kind of unjustified, unnecessary suffering? That's senseless suffering. That's for me the worst thought experiment of all, that I just cannot never can find peace with it. How can a child get sick? So that makes me overwhelmed. But I don't spend too much time thinking about trying to make too much sense there. I really, again, really am engaged in the idea of finding my own meaning and then pursuing it. And for the last couple of years, I've really been successful in doing so. Or although successful isn't it's not about success. Did you build your initial physique? Okay, a little bit break from tough questions. Through kettlebell training, or is that how you now maintain it? Did your training journey begin with bodybuilding type conventional exercises? I would say most of my physique has been built with minimalistic equipment. It's again, you probably were not you were not here at the beginning of this conversation. It's not there's nothing magical about kettlebells. I just enjoy them personally. They're fun for me, and they are a convenient tool. Worth investment, fun, objectively good training tool, but there's nothing special about them. So for me, it was minimalistic training. So one kettlebell, one dumbbell, then I upgraded to two dumbbells, pull-up bar. So man, that's a lot. Like people think that's a lot. That's a lot. Two dumbbells of 22.5 kg, 50 pounds for the Americans. One kettlebell of 24 kg, that's a little over 50 pounds. Pull-up bar, and that's really a lot for developing a decent physique. I did train in the gym before that, but it was on and off. A lot of unhealthy habits in terms of eating and drinking alcohol. I'll be open about it. So during my teenage years, when I started training, I also started going out and partying. And in my country, there were no restrictions in terms of when you can start drinking and going to real clubs for adults. So a lot of self-destructive habits. So I've been, what they say, like when you're hitting the gas and brake at the same time, I was really doing damage to my body. So I was training, but damaging my body, not nurturing my body properly with nutrition and hydration. And yeah, I did build some initial gains, and I did. I'm not going to act like I started at zero. Far from it. Far from it. I did build my initial physique, and then maybe the last year of my gym training, it has been a successful one. Was a successful one, but that was already me experimenting and being away from conventional bodybuilding style training, and then transitioning to minimalistic training and focusing on getting as much done as possible in the shortest amount of time. So yeah, is that the question? Yeah. So no, I actually made a lot of gains through minimalistic training. So once again, it's not necessarily kettlebell. There is nothing magical about kettlebell. It's about working with what you have. Greetings for a Texan there. I'm hoping to visit Texas one day. Please make more YouTube videos. I will. Victoria saying it's good to see more people are getting aware of that and not choosing sides like black and white. That's probably before speaking of politics. I'm glad if you agree. David, do you fear World War III? Barney returned because he couldn't sleep. Do you fear World War III? How do you cope with the fact that the world you want to build could be annihilated in a nuclear war and with today's instability? How real do you think the threat is? Okay, do I fear? I fear it as much as maybe the average human. Do I think about it on a daily level? Not really. I do believe in the power of the individual. I do believe in political activism, for example. I don't agree with the conservative idea of, political activism is something negative. No, no, I actually do believe in political activism. And I do believe in the responsibility of the individual to go out there and try to change the world. And if I can say so, try to change the world before their house is perfectly in order. I'm not saying there is no value. I understand the value in first changing yourself. And I do agree that the biggest impact that you can make often is resolving things within yourself and becoming a better, healthier member of the society. But I also believe there are moments in time where we cannot sit at home and fold the laundry or do shadow work when the world is burning. I do believe there are moments in time when we do have to come together as imperfect as we are and do something about what is going on. Who is going to determine what those moments are? I don't know, but I do believe that those moments exist and that I do believe in the individual's responsibility to engage in what is going on in the world. However, at this moment, I have to say that with the facts of my life and the instability of my life and me not having a permanent residence, me not having a home, I, in all honesty, do not think about the threat of World War III on a daily basis and sometimes not even on a weekly basis. I'm trying to show up every day for what I believe to be the current meaning and purpose of my life. However, you see, unfortunately, I'm not answering how do I cope with it because, how do I cope? How do I cope with it? Because there isn't much coping to be done. Rather, I would say that I don't want to be oblivious to the dangers that are out there. And how real do you think the threat is? I will say this, and I will end with this. I that is equally maybe hopeful in the sense of no real annihilation like a nuclear war, but it can be also terrifying. I do believe that the annihilation that we are the bigger danger is the annihilation in terms of a technological annihilation. I'm way more afraid of AI, way more afraid of AI and what being human is going to mean in 50 years. I'm way more afraid of that. Have you read Dostoevsky? Yes. And have you read Alan Watts? Yes. Alan Watts, not in a while. I think in the last year or so, I haven't. So maybe I should go back to Alan Watts. I kind of lost contact with him, so to say, as if he was a teacher. I've lost contact with him, and I should definitely go back to him. I read Dostoevsky, one of the greatest psychologists. The first psychologists, Nietzsche, Dostoevsky, and Kierkegaard, in no particular order. David, my name what's the expression in English? Namesake, something like that. When we have the same names. I'm 29 years old, soon to be 30. The big milestone approaching. One day in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. This quote by Freud has been confirmed by my personal experiences in battling with depression. Same here, brother. Same here. beautiful in a strange sense. In a strange sense, definitely. Not. Hmm. Okay. I'm reading multiple messages at the same time. Sorry, I lost train of thought. Most beautiful. Uh, I look back on months where I was close to ending it all permanently. I look now at them with fondness. Uh, there is beauty there, definitely beauty. Not to be mistaken with, now I think those are happy days. No, they were not happy, but now I love myself, and I truly believe that I had to go through those moments in order to truly love myself and to love life. It's not really about loving myself; it's about loving life. So here his future 3K answered me and said, "Thank you for the talk. I might take you up on the offer to message you. And I've almost gone through your Clarity Quest course, and that briefly made me feel hopeful for the future." I'm honored. I'm honored. And for anyone else, Clarity Quest is free. It's free. I really poured my heart and soul into it. You can find it, on my Instagram bio. It's long. It takes time to go through it, and it asks you to do a lot of writing, but I'm getting really overwhelming positive feedback from people who have taken the course. Wow, Victoria, dropping some Epicurean. This is aligns with Epicurean philosophy. Actually, Epicureanism kind of the rival school to Stoicism. Victoria saying, one thought that alleviated me from the awareness of death was thinking that I am probably more familiar with the previous state that before I was born than the alive state that we are experiencing now. Oscar saying divinities found in the present. Durshun is Durshun, the proper pronunciation. I would love to be able to pronounce. Understand what you say about Stoicism. If you live your life from the same worship of reason that the ancients lived, with how much do you turn yourself away from the passions that make us human? That's it. If adopting Stoicism as a life philosophy and not as a tool, it prevents you from living your life fully. Thank you for your insight. That's my philosophical perspective. That is not originally uniquely mine. Nietzsche has a Kumara, jesi li tu? Sorry, I'm saying something in my language. Kumara, Hristo se rodi. Ako si I dalje tu, ako me čuješ. Sorry, guys, this was in my language. Had to address the most important man in my life showed up on this live stream. Durshan, okay, perfect pronunciation, thank you. I wanted to share. Sorry, I want to share a criticism of Stoicism by Nietzsche, and then I got lost in the messages. So here is a interesting, not interesting, funny, but actually a profound criticism of Stoicism by Nietzsche. Nietzsche says, life. He kind of poses a question. Life isn't so bad that we should be Stoics, right? So what he's getting at, like the difficulties of life, and the hardships of life, they're not so bad that we have to spend our life in a defensive attitude. That's Nietzsche's acceptance, embracing of suffering, and meeting it head on, and almost this insane belief in the human ability to make use of all the suffering and to thrive in it. So I'm not saying that Nietzsche was, I'm not saying Nietzsche was fully right, but this funny aphorism, and that's Nietzsche at his best when he's utilizing humor, saying life is not so bad that we have to be stoics. Come on. Okay. Nicholas was thanking for the live stream and appreciate your response. A lot of useful information. Ciao. Ciao, ciao. But your English is very good. Did you learn when you were younger or did you learn as an adult? I've also been a follower for a couple of years and you're a great role model for young men and you seem like a genuine nice person. Thank you. Thank you. I'm always humbled by the comment of being a role model. I'm a deeply flawed human beings with many mistakes in my past and still making mistakes, trying to fix them, stumbling in many ways. So I would never consider myself a like some sort of exemplary character in terms of being without a flaw. Again, deeply flawed human being. But thank you for seeing value in me and genuinely nice person. That's not for me to say. So thank you again for that. When it comes to English, learning English not really through formal education, it's through reading. When it comes to speaking English, that took me a while because I was reading and actively writing in English for a long time before I had a chance to have meaningful conversations. So I'm still I think I'm better able to express myself through writing than through a conversation. But thank you. If you think that I'm speaking well, thank you for that. What's up, guys? P. Okay, P. Alan Watts is great. Just read The Wisdom of Insecurity. I would dive into his talks on Zen and would recommend reading his collected essays entitled Become Who You Are. Okay, Become Who You Are it is. That's going to be the next one when I dive back into Alan Watts. Darshan, thank you for your vulnerability. David, it's admirable. We'd love to chat with you one day in Texas. We'll chat one day in Texas. I can promise you that. I can promise you that if I'm not if. The only if when it comes to me visiting USA and Texas, the only if is if I live for long enough. Let's hope I will. Then that this calendar year hopefully takes me to USA. Hoping this calendar year. Let's see if I can make it happen. Getting a visa for USA with a Montenegrin passport. I'm not from Montenegro. It's not the easiest thing. So let's see how that goes. Victoria is saying more afraid of what AI will be used for in the future because it won't benefit most of people. However, we can't also erase our technological development no matter how much effort there is. So many opportunities, beautiful use cases for all the technology that we have, but all the technology that is being developed. But again, there is danger there. There is danger, especially now. That's why I would love more people to read philosophy, to study philosophy, to learn to think in a philosophical way, because we cannot just look at economical implications of AI. How many people will lose their job. That's important, definitely, but philosophical implications of also of those people losing their job. Philosophical implications of even if everyone is compensated and everyone is taken care of, still, what does that mean for being a human being, or being human? What does it mean when every human effort is outsourced? Physical effort is outsourced, so you only need to exert physical effort if you want to develop your body, which isn't a given that everyone wants to do it. And no necessity, you don't have to collect or hunt for your food. You don't have to cook for your food. Now it's being delivered to you. You don't have to engage in intellectual effort. Intellectual effort is being outsourced. Human connection is being outsourced through adult video and now AI chatbots, AI partners, AI girlfriends, AI boyfriends. You know, these chatbots that are now being developed for those things. So everything is being outsourced with the help of technology. And you know, where does that leave us as human beings? And this is, you know, this is the most simple now. Really, I'm not giving a well thought out proposition, but you're getting an idea. It can take a terrifying turn, but not turn. I mean, it doesn't have to take a turn. Actually, that's maybe the main direction is one of most humans using all the technological advancement to just disengage from life. Dursun, close Montenegrin friend. Wow. Small world. Unbelievable. Say hello to him or her from me. And hopefully, once again, I can treat you coffee in somewhere in Texas. Okay, we are almost hitting a 3-hour mark. I have a question for all of you here who are present. Give me the theme of 2025 for you. So not necessarily a goal. What do you want the theme, the overarching theme of your 2025 to be? Oscar, becoming. Oscar came quickly with this answer. Becoming. Victoria, I think a lot of people look down on philosophy because it's gotten a reputation, and you know, maybe rightfully so, as just intellectual exercise. And again, excuse my language, please, but mental masturbation. Because for decades, philosophy isn't anymore philosophy of life. It is intellectual exercise. It is academia. It is publishing essays for the sake of publishing. You know, there is in academia this concept of publish or perish. Publish or perish, publish or disappear, publish or stop being relevant, because it's all about, you know, publish, you know, get those citations, whatever it, you know, and engaging academics are now engaging in arguments through their papers for the sake of relevance in the space of academia, not really dealing with the questions, with the philosophical questions. So the philosophy as the art of living, philosophy as a way of life, has largely disappeared from the institution of philosophy. So there is more philosophy in, and again, I'm not now trying to make it the case like I am the guy, but I really want to say there is more philosophy in this 3-hour stream than in a lot of philosophical journals. And trust me, I've read, like I've taken my time and I spent a couple of years thinking like, that's it, I'm getting into academia for philosophy. And like, those people don't care. Like most of them, they don't care. They don't care about the relevance of those questions for life. They just care about producing so that they are relevant in the academical circle, and they have their safe, they have their cozy chair with whatever universities, and that's pretty much it. Victoria saying 2024 was suffering. Okay, Victoria, let's set a theme. Let's set a theme for 2025. But 2019, keeping word to myself, following through. That's a great theme to have. That's a great theme to have. Beautiful one. Oscar, do message me. Do message me. Arabella. Also, I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. Arabella. I think this year's theme will be creativity. Beautiful theme. Creativity. If I can share with you, I want one of the themes, maybe the main one for me, to be skill. Because theme of 2024, the theme that I set and actually ended up bringing it into reality, the theme that I set was connection, collaboration, helping others. I mean, helping others sounds vague, but connection and collaboration. So helping others actually through connecting with people and collaborating and getting others to. I will have them more often, Oscar. That's for sure. So connection, collaboration, helping others by exposing other interesting humans to the world, and I want to continue doing that. I want to step up my game in terms of providing platform for more people. But so that ended up being the theme for me in 2024, but also I want to continue doing all of those things. But I think 2025 is also going to be skill, because I want to hone my skill of writing, my skill of speaking. I want to be better to present the ideas that I want to present. I want to be able to present them better. With that being said, a couple of connections here, because people are asking me and Oscar now about live streaming more, or making more videos, and me talking about this project of giving platform to more people. Everyone here, please, if you can take a moment to stick around and to answer this. First, I would like you to answer if you ever use any other streaming platform, like for live streams, because again, I've been recommended by a lot of people to stream on both Twitch and YouTube, because on Twitch there also, like, there is audience for people are already there for educational streams of this sort, or at least somewhat similar. So it's not just gaming and brain rot content, so to say. And another is, I want to present you with an idea. What I would like to do is actually to have conversations with some of you. Like nowadays we have these podcasts with constantly rotating the same individuals. Everyone, to the extent that they can get, everyone has a bracket of what are the people that they can get on a podcast. So everyone, that someone has a level of popularity, and then they're trying to, in that same level. So someone slightly higher than them, or someone on their level, bring them to their podcast. Well, I would like to give platform to quote unquote normal people, rather than create a podcast. And I'm not enthusiastic about having a podcast, but I'm enthusiastic about giving platform to interesting humans. So I would like to have conversations. I would like to have conversations with you, with some of you, let's with some of you to have a long form conversation, because I don't see why all the wisdom of the world is to be delivered to us by David Goggins and Andrew Huberman and Jordan Peterson. With all due respect, but what are podcasts nowadays? Now podcasts have kind of lost their soul, because now it's again 10 figures just rotating on every single podcast. So again, no not every single podcast, sorry, about on I still I'm aware that there are so many niche podcasts and smaller ones, but I think I have a decent sized audience to be able to share the platform with someone else, because I'm not too excited, I'm not anymore too excited about, oh, I'm going to that my success is going to be reflected in terms of growing more. Yeah, I would like to reach more people, but I think the amount of attention that I've gotten from people is way more than I ever expected. So I would love to share it with normal human beings, because uh, normal, regular, I don't know, but that's because for me, the most interesting humans, the wisest humans that I have interacted with didn't have million followers, didn't have any kind of platform. So yeah, that's something that I would like to do in this year. That's one of the things that I want to do this year. So okay, I'm getting here. Hmm. Okay, people are liking the idea. I'm happy. I'm happy. Any of you can count yourself as potential guest. We'll make it. We'll make it happen. Okay, P has a theme for this year: balancing measured and unmeasured living, sharpening my accent, staying disciplined, balancing that with connecting more with others. Okay. Uh, P saying, I think people would love to have you on their podcast too. I'm I'm now receiving some, you are mentioning Modern Wisdom, the big one of the biggest podcasts out there. We'll see. I think that's uh, I have to do more work maybe before. I don't know how, to be honest, I don't know how those things work, because I think you have to reach out and try to get on that big of a podcast. I've been blessed that Chris is actually, I can say he's been a friend now for 5 years. In 2020, I had like less than 3,000 followers. He found out about me, sent me a message. I love your content, and I can say, to this day I always thank him for it. To this day, I know that was I took the encouragement seriously. He wasn't as big as he is now. Let's be clear about that. But it was first time someone who is doing something on a serious level has acknowledged me. And that night, I remember that night when I read the message, hey man, great content. I was like, okay, this isn't just a hobby. I should take this seriously. There is someone acknowledging me, someone who is kind of playing this game on a serious level. And since then, we've been in touch and are to this day. And I've received advice from Chris, the host of Modern Wisdom. But when it comes to being a guest, we'll see. We'll see. I'm not the type of person who sees myself as maybe being deserving of that amount of spotlight just yet. I think that message that I would like to share with people, and the ideas that I would like to, not ideas like I will teach others, but ideas that I want to bring up, ideas that I want to get people to think about. I think all of those things are worthy of the spotlight, of the greatest spotlight. But I'm not sure if I'm yet deserving of delivering that message, those or those ideas under that big of a spotlight. Let's see. Let's see. I didn't watch Dragon Ball Super. I didn't watch Dragon Ball Super. Yeah, actually, when I was a kid, I even not the full Dragon Ball Z. It's I didn't have cable TV, and that was, again, as I said, someone previously asked me about my social class, how they put it. I didn't have cable TV until almost high school, so never watched past Dragon Ball Z, and I think I didn't even complete Dragon Ball Z. And then later, when I got into anime later in my life, I didn't really spend time rewatching Dragon Ball, although I would love to one day. Maybe on the note on Dragon Ball and being a strong character, I think it's time for me to go for a run, friends. We started this talk with you when it was still dark here, and now the sun is up and the sun is high up. It's been 3 hours, exactly 3 hours 1 minute. So maybe it's time to slowly wrap this up and talk soon, really soon, really soon. At least once a week, I want to do this. At least once a week. It's just that I have to be transparent. Again, no promo here. I want to keep these 3 hours. I want to keep them without any promo. But I have my community where I'm doing live calls, so I have to balance. Between delivering value and spending time on the live calls with those people in a close community that at the end of the day is one of the things that allows me to do what I'm doing. So I have to establish a balance between the time that I spend on here and that I want to spend just talking with as many people as possible, and the time that I spend in my community. So yeah, that's it. We will talk soon. At the very least, I will do this once per week. And thank you all. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sticking around. I'm looking forward to talking to you again. And yeah, reach out. I'm not the best at keeping up with my DMs because this is still a one-man project. I'm still doing it on my own, so it's difficult to manage all the messages. But when there is something, there is something that you really feel I could answer, send a message, make a comment, remind me on the message in the comment. Be persistent. I don't know what to tell you. Be persistent. If you believe I'm the person that can give you some sort of answer, and of course appear on the live, and that's where I'll definitely get to see your question and answer it, and answer to the best of my ability. So once again, thank you. Let me just move out to the way. Next time I have to be better in organizing this, so it's not just me and blank wall. So hvala. That's thank you in my language. Message of gratitude. Amor fati. I guess all of us know what amor fati is. Memento mori as well. So love of fate, reminding you to embrace everything, the totality of your life. Memento mori, remember you will die. Kokoro moyase, that's a bit of a nerd in me. That's from an anime. Set your heart ablaze. Set your heart ablaze. I see that as living with passion, despite the circumstances. Always living with passion, with fire in your heart. So that's what I have for you. Thank you once again, and I will talk to you soon.